Hello, my name is Jason Brooks, and thank you for coming to my presentation. So as I was growing up, me and my family, we used to go over to my cousin's house, and I used to play sports with them or go to different sporting events. And my uncle was just normal to all of us. We would go around thinking that he was just like everyone else and that he was a normal person uh, as you and me are. Well, then as we started going to different events, he started to get weird looks, and we never really understood why he was getting these looks until we started to grow up. And we realized that they were looking that he was missing half of his right arm. His right arm was lost during a farming accident, and it had to be amputated. So as I started to grow up, I started to analyze him and understand better how this affects him in his everyday life, how it affects him at work, and how it affects him doing normal everyday tasks. Well, as I started to watch this, I started to see that everything that he was doing started to put a task and started to weigh on him with his emotions and his attitude. And so this then led me to go to my topic, which is the effect of prosthetics and physical therapy on the overall health of a patient. As I started my research, I first just started to look at the mental health portion of prosthetics and physical therapy and realized that prosthetics help to better depression and anxiety levels by a lot. So one of the statistics that I found was from mandibular resection, which is a common surgery found in India, where I found the research, and it stated that from pre-procedure to post-procedure, and once a prosthetic was placed, that the depression and anxiety levels decreased by about 1.5%. Well, when I started to realize that the prosthetics had more than just an effect on the mental health of a patient, I started to look more into it and realized that that physical therapy also had an effect on the patient with the prosthetic. And so I started to look into how it affects them in their return back to the workforce, and found that someone with a prosthetic that does everything that the physical therapist says or the exercises that they give them, they return back to the workforce about 4 to 5 months earlier than someone who does not go to physical therapy or does not have a prosthetic. So looking at the physical therapy side of prosthetics, I decided that I was going to look for a mentor who had experience in this field, and that was when I decided to meet with Miss Tammy Freeman. She is a co-owner and one of the head therapists at Louisa Physical Therapy, and I had gone to her before for one of my sports injuries, and so I decided that she would be a perfect candidate to be my mentor. With her, I thought that I was just going to look at the daily tasks that come from being a physical therapist, but I actually learned a lot more than that. I learned that to be a physical therapist, you have to actually understand your patient and understand everything that they're going through, not just what their injury is or not just what hardships they're going through rehabilitating. So as I was there, I met this man who had an injury, and it caused traumatic brain damage, and so he lost control to his entire left side of his body. So he was at physical therapy in order to try and regain the muscle mass and the strength in his left side of his body by walking or doing different exercises, which include pushing on an exercise ball, walking in a straight line, or different things of that nature. And as we started to go through, one of the physical therapists actually allowed me to touch the muscle that they were trying to get to act in a certain way. And while I was trying to have his foot react, I felt that at a certain point that the muscle would actually contract, which would allow the foot to step down and he could actually begin to walk. So through this physical therapy internship, I realized that it connected so much to my quote of quality, which states that it is hard to beat someone who never gives up. So through this, I learned that people don't just go to physical therapy to get better and go back to their normal life that they had before the injury, but rather they go to physical therapy so they can outperform what they did before the injury. So this then allowed me to look and see prosthetics had a big part in people's lives. And so I decided that I was going to do my internship and create a fundraiser for the Limbs for Life Foundation. So the Limbs for Life Foundation is an organization that collects money for amputees in order for them to get prosthetics, because on average a prosthetic costs between $500 to $5,000, which is very expensive for something that somebody may need in order to do everyday tasks. So looking at this, I had to look for somebody who would help me through the fundraiser and who had experience with different fundraisers or campaigns. So I decided to meet with Miss Shanna Hart. She has done multiple different community service events and fundraisers, and she has also helped on other governor school projects. So with her, we came up with a time, a place, and exactly what we were going to do. So we decided to have a chili cook-off. And with the chili cook-off, we had people from her neighborhood come to an established place and just vote on what their best chili was. And this was actually in October, so it was kind of cold. So who doesn't really like chili on a cold day? So that we decided that was the best time. And coming into this, I thought that I was really just going to learn how to set up a fundraiser, or how to set up an event like this. But I actually learned that in order to do this, you have to advertise, you have to go out into the place that you want to advertise to and actually talk to the people, which was actually very hard for me before this. I was very nervous going to talk to new people that I hadn't met before, and so this helped me a lot. Going into this, my goal was to raise about $400, and I actually raised $1,000 to give to the Limbs for Life Foundation, which will help them buy one prosthetic for an amputee. So overall, through this, I learned the HIPAA laws, which restrict doctor and patient relationships between so that they don't give away the information about a patient, because it is supposed to be secret and not given away. I also learned that in order to do different things, you have to have good personal and professional communication, which I had what I thought was good personal communication, but I did not have the professional communication, because I would talk to somebody just like I would talk to my friends or someone of that nature. Also through this, I learned that in order to understand a patient, you have to better know everything that they're going through, not just the injury. So my future plans is to go to James Madison University, and I will study kinesiology in hopes to be a physical therapist or athletic trainer, which shows that I will also be going down the track that my internship was based off of. I would like to thank my parents for pushing me through all these years of school and leading me on the right track. I would also like to thank Miss Freeman and Miss Shanna Hart for being my mentors and teaching me things that I wouldn't have known before I did this. And also I'd like to thank Miss King for keeping me on track throughout the entire year and making sure that I wasn't too overwhelmed with everything. So thank you, judges, also for coming to my presentation. Are there any questions? Yes. So mandibular resection is when they remove part of the jaw of a person and replace it with a prosthetic due to a deformity in the jaw? Yes. So going in, if I went into physical therapy, something I want to specialize in is either prosthetics and working with them in order to better what they have to do with the prosthetic, or work with athletes themselves at a college or a school, like Coach Carter is here. No, no, you're fine. Yes. Yes. So, actually, talking with Miss Freeman, I learned that part of the process of becoming a physical therapist, you actually have to go through some training to be kind of like a guidance counselor or a mental specialist, because you never know exactly what somebody's going through. So that would help me in order to better understand the patient with the prosthetic. Well, yes. 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 Yes, he has a what is called a traditional prosthetic. So it doesn't have all the electronics in it to be able to close his hand. It's just able to where he can put something in his hand and work with it, because he's an electrician. So he needed something that he was able to work with without having too much trouble. Yes. Uh, he wasn't a electrician before he got the prosthetic. At that time, I think he was about 21 years old when he had the injury. So he was just coming out of college, just uh, starting what he needed to do. So he was just a farmer at the time. Yes. Uh, So most of it was kind of straight and narrow, like I was expecting. But one thing that stood out to me was actually, I thought like the mental health part of it, that I knew prosthetics would take a toll, or having an amputation would take a toll on somebody, but I never actually knew how many deaths uh, occurred by uh, suicide or something like that due to somebody having an amputation and being looked at in a different way.